We'd like to now welcome our keynote speaker tonight. He's the Crestwood Provisional Judge. He's a Vietnam veteran U.S. Army, recipient of the Silver Star. He was a Med-Evac pilot, 22 Air Medals, a Purple Heart, and the Distinguished Flying Cross. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Charles E. Berry.
Thank you. My fellow veterans, family and friends, honored guests, and our honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, too many names. From Jim Winfrey, my big brother in high school, to Jerry Abbott-House, my friend and classmate, who I graduated high school with, and all the pilots and crew members I flew with, along with the wounded I carried who did not survive, there are too many names. When I was first told I would be speaking this evening, I was very excited. It truly is an honor I don't deserve. Then I got quite nervous. What could I say standing in front of the wall, or now this near the wall? The words don't exist in any language to pay the proper tribute to those whose names are engraved on this monument. Perhaps it was Mr. Lincoln, while preparing to speak at Gettysburg, who first realized that anything he said would be insufficient to properly honor those who had given all they had for their country. The eloquence of that speech was Mr. Lincoln's. The brevity was the product of recognizing that this degree of sacrifice cannot be captured in words. The men and women whose names are engraved on this monument have achieved the immortality of valor. Nothing that is said about them or on their behalf can ever approach the honor their memory commands. I will not try. Rather, I will try to explain what this wall means to me and my fellow veterans and why it does. While recently traveling in Boston, I enjoyed visiting the many locations and statues honoring those patriots who first fought for our liberty. On another occasion, traveling with another Med-Evac pilot, Ken Axe, Dustoff 5-1, I had the privilege of visiting our nation's capital and viewing the monuments and tributes to those brave men and women who served in World War I, World War II, and Korea. Those who served in World War I and World War II were able to share the joy of ending those conflicts with their families, friends, and the whole country. They returned to loving arms, parades, and the accolades they richly deserved. Those veterans returning from Korea were largely ignored. Korea is often referred to as the Forgotten War. It was no less brutal. It had its share of heroic feats. Even with historic battles such as the landing at Incheon, the Chosun Reservoir, Pork Chop Hill, it was still, for the most part, ignored. Recently, an individual it was my privilege to know and to call my friend passed away. Maurice Bitz-Palu was a survivor of the Chosun Reservoir. And truly a Marine to be reckoned with. He was a veteran of the Forgotten War. Vietnam was different. Perhaps at no other time since the Civil War had the country been so divided. While the Vietnam conflict was not the only cause of this division, it did serve as a focal point for the passion of both sides. For the first time in our country's history, the soldiers, the men and women serving their country, were somehow held responsible for the political decisions made by others. For the first time, the commitment of American servicemen and women to duty, honor, country was called into question. The Vietnam War was our fault. Now, this was not the attitude of the whole country, but it was the attitude of a significant portion, enough to cause a great deal of pain to those who were serving and those who had returned. The availability of television reports only fueled this fire. The American people could visit the war on the 5 o'clock news every night. They saw the horror and brutality of war, many for the first time, and they were stunned and horrified. All they had previously seen were the film strips carefully edited to show the sacrifice and bravery of the American serviceman. Now they get to see it all the horror, the brutality, the mistakes, all the savagery that war is. And there we were, on camera. All too infrequently did they show the infantryman giving his care package from home to a lost and frightened child. I recall Christmas at Duck Pho. When the Christmas packages arrived from home, almost to a man, those packages were opened and given to the children of the village. That didn't make the 5 o'clock news. And so it went on. Excuse me. And so it went on. The American people exposed to war on a daily basis they didn't like. Why they thought it was our fault is still, to this day, a mystery to me. We came from all walks of life, from all races, creeds, and colors, from all educational backgrounds. But I can't for the life of me remember anyone, definitely anyone I served with, saying, I can't wait to get to Vietnam and fight in the jungle on a daily basis, expose myself to an enemy adept at hiding and ambushing me. I just can't remember anybody saying that. I can remember being in country for 266 days and realizing I had less than 100 days left. I was short, a double-digit midget. I was ready to go home. We all were. And finally, when that time came and we were going home, it was almost magical. We were going home back to the world. Nothing could have prepared us for what awaited us. We were, for the most part, 19 to 23. We had spent 1 year in a war with no lines, no defined positions, every day wondering what weird thing could or would happen next, and now we were going home. We weren't unintelligent. We had heard the TV and radio broadcast. We'd read some stories, but the country would welcome us. And it would be over. That's not what happened. I won't go into the details as it's a counterproductive exercise. Let's just say that those around us still felt it was our fault and we should shoulder the responsibility for the war. Some, a very few, myself among them, had parents and family that had served their country in World War II and Korea. They understood what we had gone through and were our support when we most desperately needed it. Others were not so lucky. The country seemed to focus on the mistakes, the tragedies that occurred, instead of the valor and heroism of the servicemen who had been in the Nam. The kindness of the American soldier, which has been with us since the Revolutionary War until now and was there in Vietnam, was largely ignored. There were even many TV shows with plots that had some deranged character that was described as a Vietnam vet who can't adjust. To a large part of society, We were not soldiers. We were Vietnam vets, someone not to be admired, but to be careful around. Then, for whatever reason, a light went on somewhere, and someone said, you know, over 58,000 men and women died in the Vietnam conflict/war. Shouldn't they be remembered? Shouldn't there be something? And the Vietnam Wall was born. And once again, those men and women who gave their lives for their country now rescued us, their fellow soldiers and veterans, from the burden of having served and survived in Vietnam. We were now veterans, soldiers. Proud of our service and unashamed of answering our country's call to arms. We could be proud of our friends and compatriots whose bravery and valor only we would know. However, when this wall went up, something strange happened. As the wall lays in the shallow depression in an open field, it is somehow different than the memorials surrounding it. When you walk down the slight incline to begin viewing the wall, something happens. There are ghosts there. The silence of those viewing the wall is profound. When Ken and I first visited the wall, I remember a family walking down the entrance to the wall. The mother was pushing a stroller. In the stroller was a 2 or 3-year-old. He was crying and raising quite a fuss. Actually, that's what the 2 and 3-year-olds are supposed to do. It's in their job description. But when they got to the first panel of the wall, he became silent. No one had said a thing to him. No one had tried to quiet him. He just became quiet on his own. As Ken and I looked around, we were struck by the silence and reverence in the presence of this tribute. For us, the Vietnam veteran, the wall validates our service. It says to the whole world, we served with honor. We were soldiers, and we will now take our place with our brothers and sisters of this country's conflicts and struggles for liberty. We did understand duty, honor, and country, and fulfilled our vow. But still, that silence at the wall is haunting. It almost says, here's a roll call of your country's dead who served with those veterans who walk among you now. You did not welcome them home, but you will be forever responsible for that omission. And so it is that the Vietnam veterans were first in line to welcome home those servicemen returning today from Iraq, Afghanistan, and all points of conflict across the globe, and proudly declare, never again will you be blamed or forgotten. We will celebrate your service and honor your sacrifice. When I was in flight school, we had little brass on our uniforms, flight uniforms, and on our TWs. And the brass said, above the best. in 1969. In 1969 and 1970, in Chu Lai, in the Republic of Vietnam, I fought and served alongside the bravest men and women in the universe. Thank you.